So we also have this new variant, which I touched on a little bit last week, the Omicron variant, which is all over the world. And by the way, started in Europe. So our travel bans to Africa are basically just racism. We already have a bunch of cases in the United States as well. And if we've learned anything from previous variants, you guys, once we find them somewhere, it's just a matter of days or a week or whatever until we find it everywhere. There's no like cut off travel and we can it's everywhere. We just haven't seen it yet, right? We kind of learned that. The Omicron variant, or Omicron, however you pronounce it, is not necessarily more in a vacuum. It's not necessarily more deadly than other variants of COVID, but it is more contagious, which makes it more deadly, right? And harder to contain. And this is exactly what we've been warning about when we talk about vaccines and IP rights and the TRIPS waiver, is that if you don't vaccinate a significant portion of the world quickly enough, you're leaving the door open to variants that may render your vaccines less effective or entirely ineffective. And we're just kind of headed down that path, right? Now, Biden said, he came out months ago and very disingenuously claimed to support waiving IP rights for these vaccines, but he did not support the TRIPS waiver by name. TRIPS waiver is a specific proposal. India and one or two other countries put it to the UN. It's a specific proposal that would allow other manufacturers, producers of medicines and vaccines, to create generic versions of the vaccines so that we could distribute them faster, right? And Biden did not support that. He was careful with his words to say, I support a waiver. And now it's been months. He's done nothing about it, and claims to be trying to negotiate a different deal, which undoubtedly means a deal where Pfizer and Moderna and Johnson & Johnson get to fatten their pocketbooks even more. So we are literally putting the entire world at risk for the sake of big pharma profits. By the way, while we want to hand wring and finger wag at people who choose not to get the vaccine, we are keeping impoverished countries from even having access to it. I mean, if you want to talk about summing up the Democratic Party and modern American liberalism in one issue, that's it. We want to wag our finger and do character assassinations of people who don't get the vaccine, which, by the way, I am very pro-vaccine. I got 2 shots of the Pfizer and I intend to get boosted, and I encourage my entire audience to get the vaccine. Okay. But notice what the liberals want here. What they really want is just to be able to say, you're bad. They want a virtue signal. But when it comes to actually getting the vaccine to people, what do they shoulder shrug? I don't know. I trust Biden. So, and this seems to be what a whole lot of issues are boiling down to now. Is this desire to virtue signal and engage in character assassinations in ways that are entirely hollow and meaningless and that don't actually have an impact on other people's lives or policy or any sort of institution or anything. We progressives have been calling for the TRIPS waiver since last spring, I think it was. And Biden continues to drag his feet on this. So he's done this on a number of issues. We're also going to talk about Yemen later today. He's done this on a number of issues where he says something in a very particular way to get a couple of days of good press on the left, and then he just doesn't act on it. Right? He did this with like 95% of his fucking agenda of the platform he ran on. He claims he supports $15 an hour. All he had to do was overrule the parliamentarian and we'd have a $15 minimum wage right now. Well, what does he do? He doesn't act on it. He talks the talk and then he just doesn't budge when it comes to walking the walk. So you don't really support it, man. Like, I'm sorry, you don't. If you don't get to just, I know I use this example a lot, but it just like it resonates with me. These politicians want to sit there while they're stuffing their face with steak and pork and duck and chicken and tell you that they're a vegetarian, right? And the media sits there and watches them stuffing their face with meat, calling themselves a vegetarian, and doesn't question it. They just play stenographer. Oh, vegetarian Joe Biden, right? That's what we see with these IP waivers. That's what we see with Yemen. That's what we see with the $15 minimum wage and canceling student loans and all sorts of issues that Biden has come out and taken a rhetorical position on that the left is appeased by and then refused to act. And this one happens to be one where he's condemning the entire world to illness and possible death and pandemics and lockdowns and etc. All for what? So some Pfizer executives and shareholders can deepen their pockets. Reprehensible, disgusting, condemnable behavior. And I want to show you guys here what Cori Bush had to say about this. I think this was pretty spot on. She says, every day that COVID-19 vaccine patents aren't waived is a day that we perpetuate a vaccine apartheid. It's time to ban Big Pharma's greed and waive the vaccine patents. That's how we save lives here and globally. And you see here from Progressive International saying 2.5 million nurses from 28 countries have filed for a UN investigation of human rights violations by the EU, UK, Switzerland, Norway, and Singapore for blocking the waiver on COVID-19 vaccine patents as new strains proliferate. And again, Biden taking the rhetorically correct position on this, but not actually acting on it. So I hope to see the TRIPS waiver go forward, but you guys, every single day that we do not go forward with the TRIPS waiver is another day that we're perpetuating that vaccine apartheid. We can't even begin to do the math because all of our estimates on deaths and cases are undoubtedly very low. So we can't even begin to try to calculate how many people are you killing every day you don't go forward with those IP rights? How much more likely are you making it that the vaccine will be rendered ineffective by a future variant? What's the percentage ticking up every single day that you don't go forward with the TRIPS waiver? We can't really do the math on it, but it's undoubtedly happening, and it's undoubtedly a catastrophic and concerning number. So we'll keep an eye on the Omicron variant. We'll keep an eye on the vaccine situation. I encourage all of my audience to get vaccinated and to do whatever you can to ensure that the rest of the world also has access to these vaccines. And take COVID seriously, you guys. People are dying of it. You know, I know it gets incredibly tiresome 2 years into this thing, but because our elected officials are refusing to deal with it, we kind of have to look out for our neighbors and for our family members and our friends. You have to look out for that person next to you at the grocery store. And you know what? They may look healthy. They may look like, hey, young, they're in their 20s or 30s. They look healthy. They're fine. You don't know if they live with a grandparent. You don't know if their spouse or sibling has is immune compromised. You have no idea. So we have to look out for each other. Go get the vaccine if you haven't. I really encourage you to. And, wear a mask. Engage in the safe practices. We all have to take this seriously because the Joe Bidens and Donald Trumps and the EUs and the Singapores of the world are not. They're refusing to. They're instead prioritizing Pfizer's profits and Moderna's profits, etc. Okay. So at this point, guys.